Hi everyone, Jeri Bellini here. Welcome to the Little House in Pennsylvania. So I wanted to just give you a heads up about the video today. I am going to be doing quite a bit of talking up front. I did want to explain to you the backstory to this particular project. Now, this particular project was encouraged to come out of the closet for two reasons. One is the texture tags that we did last week, and that was using knit cloth. Okay. The second reason that it came out was Catherine, K3N, Catherine Chambers. She's doing a series on her channel and calling it the Comfort Cloth, I believe. And it's a year-long series. So I have been watching it and I said, that's reminding me of Mom's quilt. I'm going to get that out. So that's why I got it out. We're going to do a little chit chat in the beginning of the video now, and I'm going to explain to you a bunch of stuff. Get a cup of coffee and hang out with me for a little bit, or fast forward to where we actually start to do something. Just so you have something fun to look at while I'm talking, this is one of my favorite blocks. This is my mom. I want to timestamp this because I'm going to talk to you for a while, and if you're not interested in hearing any of the story behind this project, then you can fast forward to the actual where I start working on it. I'm going to start at the very beginning. My mother passed away. She's gone 10 years this February. I kept all her clothes. She didn't have a lot. She just had a small amount of stuff, but she wore knitwear. I'm going to call it knitwear because it wasn't your typical t-shirts. It didn't have a logo on it, but it was just stretchy. I didn't know quite what to do with it, but I knew I wanted to do something with it. Now, fast forward, Mom's passed away. I've got all her clothes. What am I going to do with them? It's t-shirts, for crying out loud, right? Nobody wants to sew with t-shirts. They're stretchy. I just kept the stuff in a box until I came across Jude Hill's blog one day. I don't even remember how I found it. But I signed up for her blog. I started watching her and started looking at her work. I actually joined her Forever Zone, and you should do that if you're interested in her work. I find her work. I see she's not doing traditional quilting. She's doing something different. Gee, maybe I can use some of her techniques and create something with my mother's clothes. So I reached out to her. She gave me some suggestions. Thank you so much, Jude, if you ever see this video. And I started. So I'll show you the very first block I made in a little while. But meanwhile, I just wanted to let you know what the backstory was on this. I want to go through my process with you step by step, just on the off chance that you're in the same situation as me, or maybe you just like the thought of using t-shirts in your work. Maybe you have a whole closet full of them and you don't want to make a typical traditional t-shirt quilt where you just cut the logo out and stitch it down. Maybe you want to expand your work into other things. Maybe you want to keep t-shirts out of the landfill. Maybe. I don't know what your reasons could possibly be, but I know that since I started this project, I look at t-shirt cloth in a whole different way. You get your stuff out and you look at it and you say, okay, what colors am I working with? What can I add to this if you're going to put some of your stuff in with it? And I decided, because these colors are not my favorite color, but they are my mother, and when I see them, I think of her. So what am I going to do with this? My addition to this, to bring us both together in this piece, is to add neutrals. I wanted to show you some of the types of shirts that I'm dealing with. And these are 4 shirts that I have not taken apart yet. I have taken everything else apart. Now, she did have a few fancy blouses when she went out, and at this point I haven't used those for anything. So I'm sticking with the t-shirts now. So here's one. And this one has some serious potential because it's got these lines here and it's got this embroidery. So whenever I have that, I do take that off. I haven't used it in a quilt yet, but I will consider it. Okay, and I'm going to show you exactly how I take these things apart because I do have a method to my madness. When I said to you earlier she didn't have logos on her shirt, you see what kind of tees I'm talking about. This does not count as a logo to me, and a lot of her stuff has stains in it, and I could care less. All right, so you get the general gist. Oops. Now that to me is valuable, that placket, and I will show you something at one point. I have a lot to show you, so, and then I'll just show you this last t-shirt. Okay, so you see what I'm working with. I kept all the labels of everything, and oh wow, this one's 100% cotton. Shocker! Because most of them are poly cotton. I just looked through the labels, no label in there. I looked through the labels a few minutes ago to see. So this is basically the label I'm usually faced with. Cotton and poly. So when I take something apart, I take the bigger pieces, I fold them neatly, and I put them in a stack like this over here. Then, as I'm taking it apart, I separate the sizes of the pieces into these 3 different buckets. So sleeves, because they're fairly big, will go in this bigger bucket. So anything a little bit bigger goes in this bucket. This one is all the hems. That's a seam in the sleeve. Now I will be careful to cut that out and keep that because I can use that in part of the project. And then of course I cut this out. This is the hem, and this would go in this bucket. This bucket is anything that I've cut up that started to get too small. So it's little tiny pieces of stuff, and all the tags are in here as well. And then you can see the waistband is in here. Anything kind of weird that I don't really know exactly what to do with goes in this bucket, or teeny tiny schnivvies. So there's 2 things I wanted to show you that can be done with the seams, and this is one of them, where you weave it and attach it to something so it stabilizes it, and then you can go on and stitch it, which I have not done yet. And so this is a pillow. Again, this is Jude's idea, and I used all my mom's like waistbands and hems and little pieces here and there of the seam of her jeans. And you'll see there's a sock in here. This is one of her socks, believe it or not. And this is one of her fancy blouses. I just took the, the part where you button. And yeah, this is a corduroy something that was hers. I don't know, I just pulled it apart and I made this pillow. So if you're interested in making this pillow, I suggest you you definitely follow her, and she'll show you how to make it. Okay, let's move on. All right, now we have our t-shirts collected, or our clothing, or whatever it is we're going to use that's a little kind of strange. And I'm assuming you're interested in making some kind of memory or comfort cloth with your loved one's clothing. And that might be why you're watching this. Or you maybe just want to watch it because you think I'm totally off the wall and you want to see what I'm doing. All right, so the first thing I started with was a background cloth. Jude said to me when I asked her, like, I don't how should I start this? I don't know how to start this because it's t-shirts, right? And what am I doing with them? She said, just start collaging. So that's what I did. I started collaging, but what am I going to collage? I need something to collage onto. So this is where I was bringing my person into the quilt. So we're going to live on the quilt together. This is my cotton quilting cloth that I've collected over the years. There's some random recycled clothing in here. There's some feed sacks. There's pillowcases, handkerchiefs, whatever. So I just gathered it. I had no real plan in mind at the time. So the sizes of these pieces are not going to make any sense as I show them to you. If you have any questions, ask in the comments. But my thought is to show you, these are the background pieces that I created. And there's no rhyme or reason here. I just wanted to get started. I have way too many of some, not enough of others, and the sizes are all over the place. Not a big deal. I can cut them. I can rearrange them. It's going to work. And this quilt is not going to be in a show. It is going to wrap around me like a big hug. So here's a 9 patch. These are 3 inches. So you see, it's really a weird size. I can put borders around it. I made a ton of these, probably goodness knows why, but I did. I can make a whole nother quilt with that. All right, I played around with different techniques that I learned from watching Jude. This is one piece of this. Don't look at the white underneath. This is one piece of cloth. She pinches it and stitches it, and you can't see it because it's basted down. It's invisible basted to this piece of white, but I can show you how to do that, or you can go watch her. Join her Forever Zone. She's amazing. This was just something I was playing with because I didn't want anything particular. I wanted to just stick down whatever I wanted to stick down, however I wanted to stick it down. Make sense? I don't know. I just got 4 thumbs downs for that sentence. This is way too big, but you know, hey, I was playing. I'll do something with it, maybe make a pillow. This is all the same cloth. Just wanted to see if I wanted something kind of quiet. This is coffee dyed stuff that I did. Yeah, this is a bigger 9 patch. Some of them I left the hole in the middle, and I'll show you just an example of what could be done, right? This is Mom's t-shirt. And I just did this star, and this is a star that I did learn from Jude. Okay, you're going to see a heavy influence of her in my work, in this quilt especially, because, you know, she did help me with it when I was kind of like saying, I don't know. All right, let's see what else we got. So here I did that. Now I can add more around here and make it the size I need it to be. I could use Mom's t-shirts to do that. Or I could use more of my cloth. Are you getting the picture? So I'm happy to put a few of these blocks together in a small playlist. There's another one where I just wanted to keep it simple. Now this reminds me of my mother's house. And I did blue. This is her t-shirt. She had a flower garden out there. And of course you can see it's a work in progress. All right, this one. A lot of times, and this was back, years ago, I did these, I was regular basting. Now I do a lot of invisible basting, but, it is what it is. This one has some denim on the back. This morphed. There is no right or wrong way to do this. If you want to do it, I would suggest get the clothes, figure out your background, and we'll go from there. So this is another option for a background where you weave your strips of cloth over and under, and that's quite interesting and quite fun. And then I applicate on top of it. Unfortunately, I didn't have an empty one to show you, but yeah, this one is already quilted to a piece of my mom's jeans, and as you can see, I just leave the seam in there and call it macaroni. I had to put you up really high so you can see what I'm going to do now. I want to show you how I deconstruct one of the t-shirts. Now, I already cut the bottom off, and that would be the hem that I showed you. And now I'm going to turn this inside out because I want to save all these seams. I'll use them. So you can use a rotary cutter or a pair of scissors. So I do both. Whenever I can use a rotary cutter, I definitely will do that. I can go right up there and just be careful not to cut into the stitching. You want to keep this seam intact. Now you can make a decision. You can go all the way up. I just wanted to add, and this is kind of a crazy place to say this, but wash the clothing before you start any of this. I know that seems kind of like something you should do and would think of, but you never know. I hesitated to wash my mom's clothes because I didn't want to get rid of the smell, her smell, so I didn't wash them right away. I just put them in a basket. So I would just trim this a little bit here. So you see, so now I have that big long seam that I can use in one of those things I just showed you. And I'm going to do the same exact thing to the other side. So I'll just do this to one side so you can see what I'm doing. And I want, this is the shoulder seam, I want that. And I also want this hem here. And it looks like, oh my gosh, it looks like she cut this and made this shorter. That's interesting. I'm going to cut on both sides of the seam, and I hope my head doesn't come into the camera. Give yourself a little extra and make sure that there's nothing underneath here so you're not accidentally cutting into a part of the shirt. I have done that before. All right, I'm just going to use the scissors for a minute so that I'm extra careful here. And better to be safe than sorry, go slow. Okay, now this was definitely a hand-stitched seam on there. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to cut that off or not. So I'm just going to set that aside so I can have a think about it. And now here is the shirt. It's open. I'm going to cut this seam out so that I have it to do, you know, some weaving, and I can do it with a rotary cutter. And I try not to get like right on top of the seam because I can always trim a little bit of this off after the fact. I just don't want to accidentally cut into this because this has the overlocker, the serger stitch on it. And you'll definitely fray it. It'll start fraying and frazzle it. You know what I mean. Okay, so this goes into my hem bucket. And now I'll cut this shoulder. I could do that with my rotary, but I'm going to just do it with my scissors. And I'm going to get right up to the neckline. So there's the neckline. And I'm going to cut out the neckline. Now this shirt has this, and I save these. I'll show you what I do with that in a minute. I know I keep saying I'll show you that in a minute. If I forget to come back and show you something, oh, and there was a label here. I must have cut that out already. If I forget to show you something, just tell me in the comments. Jerry, you said you were going to come back to that in a minute, and you never did. And I'll add it to another video. Okay, now I'm going to get all the way around. Let me do this side. All right, now I'm not getting too close to that with my rotary cutter because I don't want to accidentally cut into this placket. Okay, and now I'm just going to cut straight down, and I'm just going to make sure I leave myself enough cloth here. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do with this. Okay. All right. Now, I'll just leave that exactly the way that is until an idea strikes me. Now I haven't started stitching this, but this was my thought, because this was around my mother's neck, her beautiful neck, and this was right down the middle of her chest near her heart. So I just value these pieces a lot. So I'll stitch that down, and you can see the kind of block that I made in the background. And this block is, wow, it's a big one. It's 15.5 inches. I am going to address the sizes of the blocks at some point. I don't want to give you too much information today because I don't want you to get overwhelmed. So we'll talk about the sizes of the block in another episode. But I just wanted to show you that. For the time being, I don't really know where this project is going, and I didn't know where it was going when I started it either, so of course. But I was thinking while I was editing that it would be helpful. I made a few of the background cloths. So this way, if you want to play along, or if you just are kind of curious and you want to use these different background cloths for different things in your work, you'll have that in your arsenal. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And you can use the background cloths for the texture tag projects that we do. In fact, the one I did last week, I have already started stitching that onto one of my background cloths. So I thought you might want to get started on one of these blocks, and I think this one's pretty simple. You can do this at a sewing machine, or you can sit on the sofa and slow stitch this. So let's do this one first. And I'm just going to quickly show you how to do this without actually doing any sewing. All right, make sure you can see me. So choose the size of your background cloth that you want. You need something lightweight cotton to use for the backing. And don't worry about it if it's too big or too small. You can always stitch these blocks together after the fact, like that, or any other way. And if it's too big, you can cut it off and you'll wind up with things like this that you can definitely use in your stitching, right? So the first thing you're going to do is gather some strips and lay the first one down. Now, I always like to look at the right and wrong side of each piece of cloth that I'm going to use. And in this case, I prefer the wrong side. So I'm laying that with the wrong side up. I don't want to confuse you with that, but this is the correct side is up. Now I'm going to take another strip. And sometimes your strips might be crooked, so that's fine. You could just keep sewing them on crooked. Just make sure that you go out past the edge of your sheet, or you can straighten it out each row and then just trim this back. You could do that too. But let's just, for example, say that you have this first one and it's crooked, and say you have another one and that one's crooked too. So match them up so that when you sew them, now they're straight again, like that. See? So that's what you're going to do. So let's just say I want this up this time. That's the right side. So I'm going to just lay my cloth down along the edge of the first piece, and you can pin it or not. It's up to you. I'm going to pin it just so you can see what I'm doing. And if I was going to sew this on the sewing machine, I wouldn't bother pinning it, but if I was going to take it to the sofa, I might, because, you know, it gets wiggly when it's in your hand. So now I would stitch this with a running stitch, and then you're going to fold it over just like that, and you're going to finger press it. When I do these at my sewing machine, I do have my iron out. So now let's add another strip. Now this one is straight, but it's not long enough. So what I would do in this case is stitch something to the end of this to make it long enough and then stitch it down. So then I would just lay it down, pin it if you need to or not, stitch it, and then fold it over. And just keep going all the way up like that. This block, I didn't have enough to finish all the way to the edge. This piece was very crooked. So then I just added this extra little piece, and it's very scrappy. When I come back next week, I'll show you some of the blocks that I made with Mom's quilt. We can go over another background cloth. Let me know in the comments what you want to see me do with this, because I'm very flexible. And if you want me to make a playlist with a bunch of background cloths, I'll take, a few minutes and do that. And yeah, I don't know where this project is going any more than you do, so we'll do it together. I did want to say, even if you don't want to make a memory quilt or a comfort cloth, that it might be fun to make some of these background blocks and do some of your work on top of them. You can make wall hangings, you can make journal covers, you could make table runners, pillows, anything that you are making with your sewing now, you can make with these techniques. So it's just a little something new for you to play with. And as always, remember, I always say, keep moving, just play, no rules, and remember to be grateful for something today, each and every day. I'm always grateful for you. I'm grateful to share this quilt that I love so much with you. And I will see you again next Friday with another installment of this. And we'll just see where it's going to take us. I don't know how many videos I'll do pertaining to Mom's quilt, but for now, I'll see you next Friday. Bye for now.